Hi there, welcome to Homekeepers. Oh, so happy to be here. So glad you're there. It's just been a wonderful week here on Homekeepers. I hope you have been with us the entire week. Actually, this is the final day that Pastor Willie Rice from the Calvary Church in Clearwater, Florida is my guest, and it's just been, I think, a wonderful time of getting the word of the Lord out to especially American Christians, a message that they don't know at all, or maybe they've forgotten. And I'm so thankful that we were willing to make this happen, and I want to thank him again for carving out a couple of hours to be with us in order to bring this to you. But we will be finalizing this wonderful book of 1 Peter and the overall theme that we are exiles, we're citizens of a different kingdom than the one we're living in at present, and it'll change everything you do. It'll change your thinking, it'll change your priorities and all. So we will finish that up today. And also I'm thrilled to have Summer and Tiffany and Stephanie over there in the kitchen. They're going to put together a flower box, and I appreciate Tiffany and Summer joining us. These are Proverbs 31 women. You know, that woman was so busy. She put her family first, but she was also a businesswoman, and these ladies have businesses, and we put their information up. I hope you will remember that and enjoy what they're doing, because I think most women want their home as beautiful as they can make it, and these girls can give us some great ideas that are not at all expensive. So I'm going to turn it over now to Stephanie and her guests, Tiffany and Summer.
It's going to be a fun time today, let me tell you. I not only have Tiffany from Nook and Cranny, my favorite DIY workshop, but I have Summer from Summertime Florals. They've gotten together, they've done a project together, and we're going to share with you today. It's all about getting your imagination going. So what are we doing today, Tiffany?
We are so excited. We collaborated with Summer from Summertime Florals, and we're doing rustic centerpiece boxes. We are building the boxes at Nook and Cranny, and then Summer actually comes in and she teaches how to do a DIY floral arrangement. And she brings all these beautiful flowers, but you could also get flowers from the grocery store or whatnot and use your own. So this is, everything can be achieved at home that we're going to do today. But these are the boxes that we use. Of course, my dad builds everything. And most people in the workshops like to stain it. Staining is a huge trend right now. So I'm going to show you how to stain it. It's super easy. You've used our wood stain before. We're going to put our gloves on because, you know, we want to protect those fingers. It is water-based, but we just don't want to make a mess. And we like to use the sponges because it's not so messy. So I've got one in here for you. My glove's not cooperating. And you're just going to basically rub it on. I've done most of it, but if you want to do that area.
So the box is built, and then they can decorate it.
They can decorate it. And you don't have to use stain. You can use paint, whatnot.
You put anything you want on it, right?
Yes. We teach a lot of different painting techniques, distressing techniques. A lot of people like to make the wood look old, even though it's new. So we can teach you how to do that. Stain is usually the first step in that process.
When I first saw this box, everyone knows my favorite time of the year is Christmas, and all I could picture was like evergreen in it with bulbs and decorations. So
the good thing about this box is when we get to summer, we'll also show you that when your flowers are long gone, you could sit it on your countertop or somewhere in your home, put fruit in it, you can store things in it, but also you can flip it over and it can become a stand. So yeah, when Summer gets to building, she's going to show you how we can use it as a stand. This is also an upcoming project that we have. We're collaborating with Summer, and it's going to be an herb garden.
I'm telling you, if you're in the Tampa Bay area, you want to come to Nook and Cranny. And if you're in the Tampa Bay area, you need flowers, you want to get with Summer.
That's it.
Okay, so
I'm going to let Summer take over now. She's going to show you her tricks of the trade.
So this is our completed flower box. So what I'm going to do is pull this flower started box from the side over here and just talk a little bit about how I start building the box, or building my flowers in the box. So we start with the green oasis, and I'm not sure if you can see that on the underside of it. Fill it with water, soak it for about 30 seconds, and then we start with the greenery. This is a eucalyptus. It's called a silver dollar eucalyptus.
I love the smell.
And I think you can dry it actually too. So I start with 4 corners, putting plugs on 4 corners, and then I do the sides, the 4 sides. I repeat the same thing with the hydrangea. Biggest trick to this is once you put your flour in, if you don't leave it in, you can't pull it back out.
Okay.
It's not, it doesn't have contact to water. So once you stick it in, you're
Leave
committed.
it. Leave it.
So from there,
Set it and forget it.
Yeah,
No.
that's right. From there, we go into adding some of the other roses. The two flowers in here are hydrangeas and roses. So I do the same technique with that. I go ahead and start adding. I'm very symmetrical, so let's just start off with that. You don't have to always be so symmetrical. I like to go one side, the other side, and vice versa. So that's how I kind of keep building.
Right, right. You want to add a freshness to your home. I mean, seriously, just get some fresh flowers. And this is just to, if you have a box at home and you're like, what am I going to do with, I have nothing to do with this box. This gives you an idea.
It does. And a lot of the craft stores sell just a very basic kind of box. And you can build upon that. If you get on Pinterest and search, people put mason jars in
If you get on
them.
Pinterest, you're never going anywhere else. I'm telling you that right now, so I'm warning you.
You might not want to do that. But people will search on Pinterest, and you can come up with all sorts of ideas, from storing fruit to flowers to mason jars. I mean, the possibilities really are endless. But fresh flowers really just, bring a little something to your home.
Okay,
so that's why
who doesn't love fresh flowers?
Right.
Really. And when we thought about this centerpiece box, we knew we had to go fresh, and Summer had just kind of gotten started, and I thought we need to collaborate because this is going to be amazing.
And I will tell you, you will never beat the prices of what they're charging for these workshops.
You definitely will not.
Crazy. When I saw it, I could not believe it.
That's our goal, is to just kind of make it affordable, reasonable, because you know what, and fun. That's the main thing.
Right.
Yeah. And something that you're going to leave and be proud that you made, and
that's
actually
what
want to display in your home.
I always say, I walk out of there and I'm walking on air because I'm so excited about what I've created and that I did it, and that's going to be in my house, or a gift for somebody.
Right.
You give somebody something that you want to have meaning. It's
Right.
like, I made this. It
Exactly.
came from my heart.
My
and
hands
it looks good.
Yeah.
It looks professional.
Yeah.
And we all can do this. We all have the capability of having something turn out just like this.
The best thing was after this workshop ended, before I even got home, 4 people had sent us a picture. They had already had it in their kitchen,
house.
and that's
In their house.
that's what the best part of it is, that Summer was able to teach them how to do this. They got home and were so proud that they literally put it in the kitchen and took a picture.
I love that. We love having these girls here. I hope they come back more often. Their information is going to be on the screen. Honestly, if you're in the Tampa Bay area, please see them. Come see Tiffany. Order from Summer. They would love to help you out. We'll see you next time.
Well, Pastor, we have really kind of gone through the book of 1 Peter. I really appreciate you being here, as I mentioned on other programs, but of course not everybody sees all the programs. Sure. I have a passion for this message, that the church hear it, and television is a good way to get it out. I appreciate your time.
It's been a joy to spend these days with you.
Very much. The topic of the whole book is exiles. We've mentioned it's not a really happy word, but that undercurrent that the Lord's going to be with you through anything. My son just got back from a missions trip, and he's had a health record like no one would ever want. And I told him, I said, if I wouldn't vote for you to go on a missionary trip. And he said, that's the reason you don't have a vote. But I talked to him, and he said, I just got back from the missions trip, and I said, well, I thought that was next week, that you made it, and I didn't have the opportunity to worry about it or be awake at night or have all kinds of angst. And I thought, the Lord is going to see through His will. He's going to do it. And I think that's maybe the underlying message, 1 Peter.
Well, we're exiles, as you've noted. The word is used several times there. And Peter, I think, is writing a message of, again, not of despair or cynicism, not a defeatist message, but a message that makes these early followers of Christ, and then, of course, we know, because it's Scripture for us, that makes the church realize we aren't supposed to be at home. We will be criticized. We find ourselves amidst hostility. But there's a reason to be hopeful and joyful and strong and courageous, because the good news is we know how it ends.
We know who wins.
We know who wins.
Now, here's another one. In the last program, we talked about how Noah suddenly pops up. And as one who's read the Bible many times, I wondered, where did this come from? Now, here's another one. This is the last in the series. is he tells us what to wear. He uses the word clothed, be clothed in humility. And I thought, where'd that come from? We're trying to get through this world that's picking on us.
Right. And he comes back and talks to us about humility.
Yeah.
And you know, humility is always in style. I think Peter is reminding them that in this world that you know, I think pride comes from the success in this world, the things that we get, and that we are to humble ourselves and trust God. That we don't see how things are gonna, we don't necessarily see how things are gonna work out always. We don't necessarily have all the answers. We can trust God. We can trust God. Pride is, I'm in control, you know? I know all the answers, I'm in control. Humility is, there's somebody bigger than I am at work here, and I need to trust him. And so there is a sense in which it's almost like, relax, humble yourself. Okay, I get it. You feel overwhelmed right now? Just humble yourself, and the Lord will lift you up.
It's not a word you hear a lot in America. And we've mentioned also that we're, you know, in the stages of a presidential
I thought the same thing. You don't hear it much in a political season.
I have never heard. They blather on and on and on about themselves.
Right.
And we live in a me country. We live in a me culture. And humility, almost unheard of.
Well, it's unheard of as a virtue. It was actually in the first world, you know, or the first century, you know, unheard of as a virtue. When Jesus talked about it, it was a strange message. And it's a strange message, I think, when Peter talks about it. Again, he is writing to people. Many of these early Christians were poor. They were exiles. We imagine that in our day. It's not that far-fetched to think of people living in our midst. We have it in our area. We have it in nearly every town in America, from other countries. Imagine how they're sometimes talked about, sometimes treated, how they feel ostracized. And I think Peter is saying to them, you can trust God. You can trust God. And that's a word that we need to hear, you know, especially in a political season.
Yeah, we live in a
we
culture
have to trust the Lord.
That says, put yourself out there. You know.
Right.
That's the message.
And there's an appropriate time. Obviously, I'm grateful we live in a democracy, and I understand why people are promoting and so on and so forth. But there is a virtue to humility. You know, it throughout the Bible talks about how Moses was the most humble man on earth. We read about the humility even of Jesus. Humility is something that I've been a pastor for over 30 years. I can tell you that when you see a person modeling humility, and that's not a feigned kind of self-pity, that's not humility, that's just another form of pride. Humility isn't thinking of yourself less, it's just thinking less of yourself, you know, or it's not thinking less of yourself, it's thinking of yourself less. I got it backwards. It's just not being so consumed with yourself. It's thinking of others, it's thinking of the glory of God and the good of others. And when you see a person with that kind of humility, you just know God's hand is on them, that God will use them. God lifts up those who are willing to humble themselves before him.
And he resists the proud. That would be awful, to be resisted by God. I'm going to go to Moses. What a successful. But you know what gets me, and I read it this morning before I came down here, in Hebrews 11. Boy, that gets me, where he went to the Harvard of Egypt. And that when the time came, he chose to go with the people of God who were under such oppression. And I'm going to throw Homekeepers in here again. I've thought and thought and thought about that. How did he decide to do that? I think it was his mother.
Well, she certainly was able to have influence in his life, as we know, as a nurse. You know, I think it certainly may have been. God in his sovereignty and protection provided a way for her to be able to influence her son, even as he got the greatest education and training that Egypt could offer. And yet it's interesting that at the end of that, was he ready to lead his nation? Well, he certainly identified with his nation, but
something
yet
got put inside of him.
Something got put inside him, and yet there was another long period of time where in relative quiet and obscurity, another 40 years. So there's still character building that had to take place. And after, in essence, he humbled himself through his life, so that the Moses we see when God raises him up is not the same man that's impetuous and impulsive and angry. And as you brought that up, it just occurs to me, so many Christians in America, to me, are like the younger Moses, not the older Moses. We're angry at our culture. We want to fight back, and we want to lash out. And that's just a natural response. It's like we want to go to battle with somebody. And, you know, Jesus is the one who said to Peter, put the sword away. We're not going to win this battle with a bigger sword. We're not going to win this battle by flexing our muscle, out organizing, out shouting. That isn't going to win this battle. What's going to win this battle is a distinctive, different message that shows a greater life, a greater meaning to life, a greater purpose to life, and that's found in the gospel. That's found in Christ.
Do you have any idea how the chain of command, would it have been possible at all that Moses would have someday taken the place of Pharaoh as son?
I don't know. I don't know that, but I know he would have been in a high and lofty position. I know he would have been in a high and lofty position. And certainly identifying with his people was an act of humility. But I think he still needed that period of time where he trusted in the power of God, not in his own power.
Oh yeah, he had to do that, but somewhere that seed was planted.
No question.
You're a Hebrew.
I agree. I agree. And he identified with his people. And we need
mothers
to help our generation say, I'm identifying with the people of God. I read a line just this week that just blew me away. One of the reasons, and we're struggling with this a little bit, I talk to a lot of churches that are. The kind of a black hole in a lot of churches where we're missing is that, post-college or post-high school era, that 20-something.
Yeah.
But a lot of reason those young adults aren't choosing church is because they haven't chosen Christ. A lot of reasons we're losing them, they just may not be saved.
Right.
And I mean, I'm not, trying to...
I'm very concerned about that.
They're just not born again. The reason they're not choosing the church is because they haven't chosen Jesus. And we need, again, to that's a great point you make, to bring them to a place where they want to identify, even if it's forsaking the riches and the grandeur of Egypt, they would rather identify with the people of God. They'd rather identify with that small church or that church that doesn't seem to be in style. It doesn't matter. If that church is rooted in the gospel, they would rather identify with the people of God than rather identify with the pleasures and the grandeur of Egypt. And, we don't see that, not as much as we want to see it.
And make sure that pastors and youth pastors are leading them to the cross. Some of the youth services are a total waste of time.
Well, we've had to move away. Again, this is you look at the American church. Again, we were so tied into the culture. We wanted a youth pastor to be the activities director, take care of our kids. Now that whole idea has changed. Now we need to see that people who are working in youth ministry, in whatever hat they're wearing. Listen, we don't need an activity director. We need hardcore discipleship of teaching and training and grounding our young people in the faith, so that when their time of choosing comes, they make the right choice to follow Christ and his people.
And this humility is something that other people will notice. I've noticed more as I've gotten older that the Lord calls us to live our lives horizontally, and most of us want to live it this way. He said, he who has my commandments and keeps them, he it is who loves me. And what is the commandment of Jesus? My commandment that you love one another. Yep. And that's the hard part. I have no problem loving God.
I love that, when Jesus was asked about the greatest commandment, love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, mind, strength. But then he quickly added, the next one is just like it. In other words, the next one is as important. Love your neighbor as yourself. And I think a lot of people want to just check off the box, oh, I love God, because that's so easy to define.
No problem.
It's so easy. It's even if they're not doing it, it's so easy to say, oh, I love God. But loving your neighbor as yourself, loving the next person, that's a challenge. Now, that you can't fake. And if you really love God, absolutely, you're going to be loving
And isn't
other
that
people.
the proof that you love God?
I think it is, absolutely.
And also, we get into submission a lot. But basically it says we submit to one another,
Yeah, submission is one of those dirty words nobody wants to talk about. It's because it sounds like a power trip. It's, we go to those verses in the Bible about wives submitting to husbands and so forth.
Yeah.
But it's not a power trip. Submission is a love trip. Submission is about saying, I'm putting another person ahead of myself. Submission is about, you know what, I'm gonna put you first. And it's not about power, it's about love. It's not about control. It's about giving up control when I choose, yes, to submit to another. Yeah, as you pointed out, the verse that says, wives submit to their husbands. The prior verse says, submitting one to another out of fear of the Lord. Submission is about putting another person ahead of yourself.
Yeah, and I think if the women had a complaint, a lot of times the submit to the husband was preached more than husbands love your wives as Christ loves the church. Wouldn't be real hard to love a guy like that.
It wouldn't be. It wouldn't be. It's about loving another person more than you love yourself. And again, when you begin to paint a picture of love like that, it's going to be so different from the world. It's so different from the sexual permissiveness, which says you exist to please me. Please me. If I get pleased, if just I want it, I want. It doesn't lead you where you want to go. It leads you to loneliness and brokenness. But when all of a sudden you are transformed to truly love another person, what does it mean for me to love you? Then all of a sudden you find love. You know, you give your life away and you find it in the doing. And that sounds pretty familiar, doesn't it?
And when Peter says, clothe yourself in humility, I mean, that's total. And the outcome of that is that submission to love one another. Right. The Lord will lift you up. And as we look at just the whole picture, he tells you kind of, you know, what you can expect, but the Lord will be with you. Don't be afraid of anything. But also he's just talking a lot about conduct, and it's just kind of time for believers to really stand out with their conduct, holiness, godliness.
Right. And that's not a hard, cold legalism, we follow the rules. That's not what this is talking about. It's talking about the unity of Christ, being filled with his love, being filled with his glory, living for another kingdom, living for a greater purpose than this transient, superficial, me-first attitude which has permeated our culture. Here's the truth. It doesn't work. It doesn't work. It's not going to take you where you want to go. And so if we follow the same path, how are we going to share the gospel? We can share the gospel when we're coming from a completely different vantage point to say, look, we love you. We know the brokenness you're talking about. Let us show you a better way. And the better way is not to live for me first, but it is to know the King, to know his kingdom, and to discover the life that only Christ can give you.
Amen. It seems to me like my lifetime, the last 30, 35 years, I lived through some legalism and some of that stuff. But then I saw the psycho stuff come in. And there'll always be that ebb and flow, I'm sure. But the truth of the gospel, the truth of 1 Peter is not going to change. It's not going to waver at all. The
truth of the gospel, again, it's not a legalism. It's not, legalism is like, I feel better about myself because I can keep some rules, and it's this unyielding, passionate commitment to Christ and to his gospel that motivates me out of love to want to live for him, to serve him, and to be distinct in this world, and be willing to be strange. Because I'm committed to him, and I'm committed to his kingdom, and I know his kingdom will prevail.
And there's such a responsibility on pastors, youth leaders, children's leaders, and all, but the greatest responsibility is in the home.
Always starts there.
I was raised with a family altar, and there's nothing like that father and mother kneeling down with the kids. And
well, it always starts in the home. It starts with that influence of a mom and dad. And, you know, the tragedy is there's a lot of, you talk about this casual Christianity that isn't working anymore. The idea we're going to go to church when we don't have a ball game going on, or we're going to drop off, we got nothing better to do. That ain't going to cut it. If our kids are going to follow Christ, if they're going to be strange, because it's going to get harder, not easier to follow Christ in this culture. If they're going to be willing to be strange, it ain't going to be because you dropped them off at church every once in a while. It's going to be because you lived it. They saw this passionate, overarching, all-consuming commitment to Jesus Christ that permeated every decision you made and everything you did, and they want what you have.
And the thing I like to tell the homekeepers, too, is the power that we have in prayer for our children, our families. You know, they have prodigals and they have a lot of heartache.
Right, right.
My mail indicates a lot of heartache out there.
I'm the same as a pastor. I hear it all the time.
But every morning I pray for everybody in my family. And I got a couple of teenage grandsons, and I say, Lord, be so strong with them in the hour of temptation. Just show up.
Listen, until I would say to every grandparent here, I'm a grandparent of young ones. So we just joined that club 2 or 3 years ago, which is a great club. But your power in prayer, your power to influence, until Jesus takes you home. You're fighting for them. You're contending for them. Okay, it's tough. You tell me it's tough. Okay, it's tough. But stay in the fight. Don't give up. Keep praying. Keep influencing them. Your influence. Again, you may not live to see all the results of your prayers and your influence.
Prayers will still be working when I'm gone. This has been so great. We're out of time. Oh, thank you. Thank you.
It's a joy to be here.
Yeah, and you stay with me. Have a couple things to say before we say goodbye.
Arthelene would like you to keep the following information handy. You may contact Homekeepers by writing to Homekeepers, P.O. Box 6922, Clearwater, Florida 33758, or go to www.rippy.org. Remember, we always enjoy hearing from our viewers, and we thank you for your support.
Well, this has been a very, very rich week with such wonderful subject matter right out of the Word of God, and so completely relevant to America today, to the church today, to the church members. And I hope that it's going to make a great difference in your life, and it's just kind of put the brakes on things for you to give some real thought to your priorities. And the whole way you have been looking at the culture, at the nation, at the country, at our entire country, and the things that we're going through right now. And I believe that Pastor Willie Rice has really put a spotlight on the whole thing and made it very, very clear to us through the written Word of God. Nothing like it. I hope that you will really take it to heart, and it will change those things in your life that really needs to be changed. And we are running out of time right now, but I hope that the next time you join us, you will just remember the importance of what this program is trying to bring to you, the importance that the most wonderful thing you can do in life is to be a good homekeeper. God bless you.
If you should miss a Homekeepers program, you can catch up by going to www.ctnonline.com. Click on CTN Programs and then on Homekeepers.